wound up. She was talking about the number of single women, or single moms, divorced single moms who are struggling to raise their kids. She specifically called out the divorced ones. And she's like, and we got to do something about it. And I said, yeah, we have to stop lying to them. That's what I said. And she goes, excuse me? And I said, well, 78% of divorces are initiated by women. So, and in 90% of the case, they get custody of the kid. And 80% of the money goes to the woman. Like, there's no scenario where, like, the guys are winning out in the court system. I mean, but I go, they're choosing the men, they're also choosing to divorce. They're choosing to marry those men, and then they're the ones initiating divorce. And she was getting kind of appalled, and I'm like, wait, she goes, well, what are you trying to say? I'm like, I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just telling you what the data is, right? So how is it in the post-sexual revolution world and all that where, you know, women have way more freedoms, they're sexually liberated.
Outcomes are worse.
Yeah, why are their outcomes worse? Why is it that middle-aged women are, 10 times more likely, I think it's actually 9 or 10, to be on antidepressants, all this stuff. And you look at the number, here's a crazy number. And don't quote me on the actual digits, but I do know the ratios are right. So 67% of women are in relationships, 40-something% of men are. But there's more women in the world. So the only way that could be possible is if men are with multiple women in order for the number to work out.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, so it's a guy doesn't walk up and hit a girl over a club and go, you're marrying me, right? I mean, she chooses him, and then she chooses divorce. So we're having this whole conversation, and she's like, well, and she was like, well, I just don't. I'm like, listen, don't take my word for it. You just go look at the number yourself. I said, but here's what's really, she started talking about abuse. And I go, well, she goes, well, you have to ask why they're divorcing them. I said, well, money's the number one reason. Like, finances is it's literally the number one reason for divorce. And I go, and then number 3 is infidelity, and number 5 is abuse. And then I don't remember what 2 and 4 are. But I know abuse is 5. And it's like 11% when a woman gives a reason, it's abuse, right? 11% of the time. I go, but here's some really interesting data. And she goes, what's that? And I said, use heterosexual marriages as the control group. Now go look at same-sex marriages between men and same-sex marriages against women.
Women on women relationships have the highest
90% at the 10-year mark. 90% divorce rate. Also, the domestic violence rate is 3 times as high as it is in the male-on-male relationship. The male-to-male same-sex marriage is much more likely to last. The female-to-female relationship is almost guaranteed to end up in divorce. And so she goes, well, what do you conclude from that? And she's like, and I'm like, what do you conclude from that? I'm like, I can't conclude anything. I said, I don't know what that data tells us. I just know what the data is. I said, I won't speculate on it. I said, but I suspect that it has something to do with trauma. That men and women deal with trauma differently. So because women are generally, 70% of women are generally more emotional, and 70% of men are generally more stoic, then men deal with trauma better. We internalize it, whereas women externalize it. All right, so sexual revolution, now there's this other data. Optimal sexual partners for a woman, if you're going to marry her. Do you know what the number is?
It's less than 5.
It's less than 5. It's 2 to 3.
Yep.
5 is actually the big cutoff number.
Yep.
From 5 to 6 is when the success rate.
Kelly, guys. We got a little inflation over there.
You know what I mean? So, but the 5 to 6 number, it's so crazy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like when a woman gets to the 6th partner, her success in relationships. Yep. So, and we're lying.
And the difference between 3 and 6 is double.
Well, the issue is that it's pair bonding. So if you're at 5 partners, each partner is 20%, which means that there's a 1 in 5 chance that the last person you're with, women compare all partners against all partners. Men don't do that. So in order for a woman to be happy long term, the guy she marries has to be the greatest she's ever had, not physically, all the way around. He has to be the giant.
So if you have like 100,
So if
there's
you have
almost
10,
zero chance that's ever going to happen.
if you've got 10 partners, there's only a 10% chance that he's that guy. If you have 100, there's a 1% chance. So, but if you have one partner,
by default, it's the best.
and look at the divorce rates for women who have slept with one man. Literally, there's almost a 90% chance that they will not divorce. They will die together. It is like statistically, it just has to do with the way that we process when women bond to men during sex, men don't bond during sex. We're fundamentally different. So I suspect it has something to do with trauma. That's what I was telling her. I was like, it has to be. I'll bet we can trace it back to the way that we process trauma. But what was interesting was this is a woman who is a chief information officer who in public policy and didn't know any of that data.
Ooh.
Like she did not know any of
We need
this.
to educate ourselves.
Well, what it is it has to do with the agendas. I mean,
facing facts that might be uncomfortable.
yeah, because I'm not drawing a conclusion.
And it goes
I mean, the
both
numbers
ways.
are just the numbers.
It's not a male or female thing. You know, it's an overall thing. I think. You know?
Right.
Like men have their problems too. I think that we could probably, you know.
I think it ties back to the idea that your choices have consequences, and people don't like that.
Yeah.
If you tell them, hey, listen, you can eat cake all day, and it's going to be amazing when you're eating it, but 2 years from now, when you're severely obese and can't get up the stairs, don't tell me I didn't tell you.
So
you know,
I had this buddy ask me a question. He said, "What is the most important trait you're looking for in a partner?" And I can rattle self-awareness, right? Are you aware of like how your actions lead to outcomes? Are you aware of your motivations? Are you self-aware, right? So the best way to ask that question, the best way to ascertain that is when I'm talking to a woman, I will ask her, there's 3 questions I ask every single woman. Tell me about your dad, you know, and all I'm trying to see is, does she bitch about him?
Yep.
Like, does she
speak highly of him?
Does she speak highly of him, or does she bitch about him? That's all I care about, right? Number 2, tell me about your last ex. Okay? And again, same thing. Tell me, why did your last relationship fail? What happened? And if it's all his fault, that's big. Mm-hmm. And then the last one is, what would your ex say about you? And if you want to see somebody
squirm,
squirm, you ask them, what would and self-awareness, if you lack self-awareness, all 3 of those questions are really uncomfortable. If you have self-awareness, you have answers for all 3 of them. Because you've explored, what did I do?
I may not ask those questions in the first date. That might be a second, third date kind of thing, but you know.
But the reason I bring it up is I've been thinking a lot about, you know, obviously my goal is to try and rebuild the middle class through address social issues we have in our country by strengthening the middle class through saving and creating middle class jobs, which will support the middle class, right? That's my goal.
And what's the goal with your Instagram and your kind of?
All of that's accidental. So my Instagram, somebody just asked me this the other day. My Instagram was
trying to help.
My Instagram was for me. It used to be private. The only reason it became public was because last year at Shaw Classic, we did a collab video where I was tagged with the Shaw Classic.
Okay.
And it couldn't be tagged if I was a private. So I had to make my profile
Was it the
public.
podcast you did with him? Or?
No, it was a 60-second short of us working out together, and it was me lifting and him and Brian deadlifting.
Gotcha.
I had to make it public. Well, my story's for me. Like people will be like, "How do you put your?" I'm like, "Well, it's easier than me writing down." So you'll notice I'm putting my top set and what type of workout I'm doing. So the next time I come into my heavy, like say I'm doing heavy accommodating resistance 7 days from now, all I do is hit my archive and go back 7 days, and I look and I just look. That's why I always have the weight with the reps on there, or whether I failed, or my knee was sore, whatever it is. It was all for me,
right?
And it wasn't for anybody else. Where I started posting the other stuff about like
The stuff we're talking
dating
about.
and relationships and all that stuff was people started. So what happened was when I met Christina, the whole powerlifting team came with me. We went to the bullfighting championships as a team, and this girl that I was gonna go out with happened to be there. I hadn't gone on a first date with her. and I had seats over here. Yeah, she's the one who said, "Hey, why don't you guys come?" So I go and meet her. I hang out with her the whole time, and then they're all asking me about it later, as we're driving back. Well, then Vicente and Aaron and Don and all these guys started asking me questions about, like, why is dating so easy for you? And honestly, from my perspective, it was like, I just assumed that it was relatively easy for everybody. I didn't know that. I mean, I started asking them questions about dating, and like they're just they're struggling. I mean, and Vicente, who's a really, really good-looking guy, and it's like that motherfucker. He is terrified to talk to him.
It's confidence. It all ties back to confidence.
You
have confidence in yourself. Yeah. They'll notice.
Literally, I just shot a video. Yeah. Literally, I haven't posted it yet. So I shot a video on women want to be wanted, men need to be needed. Yeah. Right? That's how we're different. Yep. Right? So women, if you're a really strong, independent woman, right? That's not unattractive. Being masculine is unattractive. Right. But being strong and independent, that's not unattractive. Be strong and independent with everybody but your man. Right. Because the kind of guy you want is the guy you want to lead. Right. You cannot be strong and independent with him. Right. You can be with everybody else, and then, you kind of subdue it. Right. Because you can't, because he's not going to tolerate it. Right. He'll go find the girl who's, Andrew
Tate would talk about submission like this, and people would get up in arms,
I don't even like the term submission.
Okay.
It's more...
Letting your guard down.
It's more understanding... Like, when Tanya and I were together, Tanya knew... Like, Tanya is a absolute alpha female. 1,000%, even though people say there's no such thing as alpha females. In a group of girls, she's the alpha. Okay, so... She was an alpha with everybody but me. But let's say somebody's walking, she knows I'm terrible with names, right? So somebody's walking up and she knows right away, she'll literally whisper in my ear, "Oh, that's Bill and his wife married, Bill's the CEO," whatever. And I'm like, "Bill, buddy," and fucking bam, right? But let's say if the conversation's busy, like I can do this type of stuff, meaningful conversation. If you try to have a conversation with me, either that's like small talk or it's like feely stuff, I'll start drifting off.
I was going to tell you my whole life story, but geez, now.
But Tanya would step in. Yep. She would lead in that moment. She would literally, the second the conversation pivoted that way, then she steps forward and she's that big, the big personality. Well, I shoot this video about men need to be needed and women want to be wanted, right? And I get some pushback. I got a bunch of DMs. People didn't comment down below, but they did. But really, I got like 21 DMs on that, and I think 7 of them for girls and like 13 were from guys. And the number one question from the guy was, because I was describing, the video started with, "How do you go talk to a girl?" And I said, well, my mindset is if I see a beautiful woman...
Am I interested in her?
Yeah, I'm going to talk to her to find out if I like her. Right. I'm not walking up to her going, "Does she like me?" Yeah, I'm like, I don't even care if she likes me until I've decided I like her. Yep. So I'm going up to like learn who she is. Yeah. And so
if she has a brain on her shoulders or in her head, versus just...
I use that.
So I'm not afraid that she's going to reject me. I didn't even know... Vicente told me, he's like, "Well, what if she rejects me?" I'm like, "Well, what does it fucking matter if you don't know you like her?"
Yeah. And I used that today on the airport to not rizz up, but like strike up a conversation with a good-looking girl next to me. I'm like, wait, would I even like this girl?
Right.
And it helped like lower the, like it's not a big deal,
Well, because here's the other reason. I didn't even realize I was doing this either. If you're going in saying, "Do I like her?" I want to find out if I like her. So what am I? You have to ask yourself, well, what is the standards for me liking someone? What's the difference between I look at a girl and go, step one is that is a woman who's physically attractive enough that I know I would consider sleeping with her, right? And we can sleep with a woman we don't even like, right? So when you get to a point in your life where that's not what you're concerned with, so then now it's, all right, I'm looking for a relationship. So I have to like her. I have to want to spend time with her. I have to want to invite her into my life. I don't want to put her in a little corner of my life. I want her to be a part of it. So then it's, okay, well, what is that in a woman? Right? And so for me, it's, healthily fit. Like, you don't have to be fit. You have to be. The best way is to describe is I want you to look like you work out. Right? Because I don't want to deal with your health issues later. Right. Honestly, that's what it. Well, then it's nurturing.
Yep.
Like I want not just nurture me and my kids, but I want you to nurture my relationships because I'm not a nurturer. So people who are drawn to me because I can get shit done and I'm principled but I'm not. I need a partner who will do the stuff I won't do, like fill out a fucking card or just sit down and have a conversation with somebody and talk about their life. I don't do that. I mean, I do it with you. You're like literally the only fucking person I do that with. You know what I mean?
That's love right there.
Yeah.
And then I want someone who will soften my rough edges. I want someone who, with the touch of her hand, will calm me. So if I get too intense, I want and not everybody can do that, right? And so then it's, okay, now I'm going to go and find out. But what are the other things? She has to be as smart as I am. Like, she's got to be educated.
Good luck with that. That's going to be your biggest challenge, I think, right there. That's
Well, she's got to be in the same range.
Right.
You know what I mean? But and then she's got to have the same values.
Right.
Like, she has to, like, what is number one in your life? Like, is your faith, like, top of the list?
So, but back to your point about self-awareness, you want a woman that's self-aware.
Yep.
But if the guy's not self-aware, to even put together an actual outline of that, like, what are your values?
So
what
the
are you
video I
looking
shot
for?
today,
Right.
the number one thing the guy said was,
Yep.
well, you're confident. You're confident, so how do I develop confidence? And I literally shot the video. I said, that's a whole other discussion.
Right.
Confidence comes from achievement.
Yes.
Okay. Achievement comes from
Hard
setting
work,
goals
yeah.
and trying. I actually told the story when I started powerlifting 3 years ago. We have footage. On the first day I bench pressed, I think I bench pressed 155 for 5 reps. Right now, I moved up fast. Like in a month, I was pressing 225. Right. But I hadn't lifted in 8 years or whatever. I had that first workout is 155 by 5 on the top set, and now I just pushed 460 2 weeks ago, and I did 405 for 8 reps.
That's insane.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Well, how did I do that?
That puts you in the top 1% of probably powerlifting.
Oh, it puts me in the top.
Of all people, not of
puts me in the-
powerlifters,
for his age,
but like top 1% of all male.
Yeah, I mean,
people who lift.
Now I'm 50 pounds over the Texas State record
Probably 0.1%.
for my age group. I'm 50 pounds over
That's
for my
insane.
age and division. Yeah, it puts me in the top 1/10 of 1%.
Yeah,
but
yep.
It's so ridiculous. I almost bench press what I deadlift. Like, I pulled 500, which is a big deadlift for my age, and I'm almost bench pressing that. And I squat. I bench press more than I squat.
It's also part of your build, though.
Right. Yeah.
You got that.
I've got
It's just the way you're built.
I got the big, thick back.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I tell people about the biomechanics. Like, if you look at my body and you measure from the front of my chest to the back of my back, I have...
Yeah, you're wide.
Yeah, I'm really wide. So the bar doesn't come down as far for me. And I don't have short arms, but I have medium arms.
Right.
So when you take the combination, and then the big thing is I have really strong forearms. So I can lock out a really, really heavy weight. Biomechanically, it's like I'm never going to be a great squatter. In fact, I have trouble making depth because of the way my legs are built, But the point, what I was talking about was the setting goals and even my mindset on failure. Like, failure is how we learn, right? I embrace failure. Like, I embrace hitting the limit. I don't, So I shoot this whole video on confidence, and I'm like, dude, if your issue is confidence, you need to be focusing on achievement and not women. Like, I hate to break news to you, and even if that means you don't go on a date for 6 fucking years, man.
Yep.
You don't go on a date for 6 years.
Yep.
Develop confidence, because if you go on dates now, and you flame out,
it makes you spin.
You're processing that shit. You're gonna store that. So spend the next 6 years, just focusing on achievement, right? And when we talk to women, the big thing I said with women was, you take inventory of the men you've dated over the course of your life. Okay, early in life, women date men for currency. No woman wants to hear this, but it's true.
It's hypergamy.
Right, it's hypergamy, right? So early in life, women date for social currency. So when you're dating the most popular boy in school, you're dating
Singer, the athlete.
Right, you're dating him for social currency. He doesn't have any money, but he's got currency. He's got something valuable, and that is social currency.
Yep.
Right? You're attracted to the guy pre-selection and all that. You're attracted to the guy that other men look up to and other women fawn over. Right? That's why you could literally pay people to fake it.
Yep.
And people do this shit.
Yep.
They literally pay people to pretend that they're looking up to them, paparazzi and all that, and people will just automatically be attracted to them. Later in life, it's financial currency.
Right. That's ultimate stability.
Because ultimately that's stability. And it's like, just be honest with yourself about that. Like, even if you have your own money, your own success, understand you're still not dating a guy who works at a fucking gas station.
Right. And they don't find someone that makes less money than them attractive.
Right, that's right.
They have to make at least as much, if not more.
And the lawyer I talked to when I flew out to New York, she was this really famous lawyer in Dallas. Beautiful. Knockout. Like, she is a beautiful woman. Got divorced 20 years ago. She's had one relationship since. She was going to New York for her situationship. The guy she dated like 10 years didn't work. Her daughter hated him, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, and I just don't understand why I can't find love. She's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, fuck, I can tell you why. You want to know?
Yep.
I'm like, I just met you and I can tell you why.
Yep.
And she's like, no. And she thought I was fucking with her. I'm like, okay, who are you attracted to? Describe the man you're attracted to me. She's like, well, he's smart and he's strong. And I said, how smart? And she's like, well, as smart as me or smarter. Right, yeah. I go, describe some of the guys that you've dated in the past. It's like fucking power players in LA and all this shit. I'm like, here's the problem, is that you make $600,000 a year. You can afford anything you want. Do you date guys who have as much as you or above, or do you date guys who are? She goes, well, I've tried to date guys that make less than me, but it doesn't work.
It's their ambition.
Right. I'm like, the pool of dudes you are selecting from is like that fucking big.
Yeah. And by the way, they have the whole pool to select from.
Correct. And
like,
then what I said,
all the women want that.
and what I said is 80% of women.
Yeah.
I said, look at the Match.com and all that stuff data.
Yep.
80% of women match with the same 20% of men. It's fucking terrifying. There's this new report that came out. It showed all of the guys on Bumble. So it showed all the men on Bumble, and it showed all the matches. And what they did was they stripped the bots out. Okay? And it was a scatter plot. Holy fuck. It was the red dots for matches, and it was like fucking sea or red. And what they did was they ordered people by height and education. Mm-hmm. That's what they did.
Yep.
And the tall guys with the education, they had all the blood red. And then when you move down, like guys who were 5'5" and shorter, nothing. I mean, fucking nothing. Guys who were
6 foot's really the cutoff.
Right.
Once you get
I
even
don't care,
5'11", 5'11" is it starts pivoting bad. And the average is what, 5'9", 5'10"?
average male height is 5'7" and a half.
5'7" and a half.
And I'm 5'9" and a half. So I put 5'10" on my height. Right? Because if you do 5'10", 5'10" is a big difference than 5'9".
Yep.
But I also select for short women.
Because if she's 5'10" and she shows up
into the
and she's a
Amazonian
little taller than you,
Yeah, and I don't match with women.
she's like,
I only match with women who match with me.
And the matches is one thing, but then for them to actually communicate,
Right.
That's why I always found Bumble just to be completely useless. Because I would get plenty of matches.
It'd be hey.
Right, if that. Right, but I would say majority of the time it was still, I would get the match, never message. Because they probably get, 100 matches a day.
I want to introduce Noah, who did he did personal coaching and consulting with Walker Reynolds. Can we get a like a quick testimonial of what it's like to get personal coaching from Walker Reynolds?
Yeah, you'll get a job.
He'll be blunt and straightforward, and then before you know it, he'll be why don't you come aboard once he figures out your line of values.
Would you offer any coaching one-on-one for people that are looking to find love or dating?
I mean, that seems so like it almost gives me the creeps thinking about it. But like I feel like the thing that I'm doing on Instagram right now is to just try and,
It's not why you're doing it, but if someone wanted your help.
but I am very uncomfortable answering these questions. I see those guys online and I agree with, like, I read the Unplugged Alpha and I read Rational Male, and I agree with 70% of what's in those books. I believe they take it. There's the biggest issue that those guys have. Well, the biggest issue is that they communicate a message that's likely to blackpill men.
Yes.
And they don't account for any of the edge cases. They never qualify their statements, right? Like, there are
generalizations.
Right. Well, it's okay to generalize as long as you're saying in general, but not. Humanity is very diverse, right? There's lots of outliers out there. Natalia gave me a hard time about one of my, about men needing to be needed and wanting to be wanted, and I said, well, I didn't say all women needed. I said in general, women want to be wanted and men need to be needed. And I said, and I was answering a question. And if I'm going to give general advice, I'm going to give the advice that is most likely to benefit somebody.
80-20. Right?
Doesn't guarantee it's gonna work.
Why isn't it women need to be wanted? Why is it they want to be wanted? Just to make it sound better?
The reason they want to be wanted is because when you need something, you can't turn that off. When you want something, you can.
Got it.
Women can turn off whether they want to be wanted. That's the fundamental difference. They can turn off whether they're the desire to be wanted. Men cannot turn off the need to be needed.
That's why suicide rates are so high amongst males.
Right. Men need to be. I was trying to say this whole message that the moment you take away a purpose from a man, you take away his entire life. Like a guy, you think about it. When a guy knows he's got all these people depending on him, the average guy, the general guy, he'll work his fucking fingers to the bone. Get up at 3 o'clock in the fucking morning. He'll, you know what I mean? He'll eat like shit. He'll forego all of his hobbies and stuff to take care of his family. That doesn't happen the other way around. What does a woman do when she, in general, when a woman is raising a family all by herself? She is looking for someone to help her do it. A man isn't doing that. A man's looking for someone to help him with his kids, not help him with his home, not help him support his home. It's because we're just wired differently. But that doesn't mean that that's absolute, right? It's in general. But I would say that this is the if you want to see the light bulb that goes on for women, this is a big one. Every time, I'm not on dating apps, and I haven't been since December, like once I started dating Christina, right? But every woman who matched with me, and it's hundreds of women, like hundreds of women, I would match with 1 in 10 of the women who matched with me, and I messaged hundreds to 300 women, and I did 4 months, a 4-month period, and a 4-month period. So in 8 total months, hundreds of women, and of those, that's only the 1 in 10 that I matched back with. But every single one of those women was signaling to me that I'm the kind of guy they would want a relationship with. But women, all women get matches. Not only 20% of men get lots of matches. 80% of women get lots of matches. Yep. But when a guy matches with you, he's not sending you that signal. He's saying, I am asserting to you that you've passed my initial test, which is you look like someone I would sleep with.
Right.
And if I get to know you, you might be different enough that you would be the woman I commit my life to. But what the interesting thing that the sexual revolution has done is given abundance to men. There are way more beautiful women than there are the men those women want. Way more. Like, way more. A man doesn't have to put up with, if he's the guy in the 20%, his tolerance level can be basically 0. First fucking thing she does.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out.
First big red flag.
And then it's just to the next one.
Right.
A girl can do that too, but guess what she's moving to? The next guy who wants to sleep with her.
Right.
Not the next guy who has said,
right,
I want to have a relationship with you. Because that's what, and when you say that to women, it's like, oh, duh. You know what I mean? And I'm like, mate, that's why, and this is where the red pill guys and I would definitely diverge. It's one of the things that they say is, when a woman is in her hoe phase early in life, I hate that fucking term, but when they're in that phase,
304 phase.
But no, it's literally like the actual, like it's not even pejorative. It's literally 18 to 22 is literally called the hoe phase.
304.
And then and then it's the party phase from 22 to 29, and then it's the epiphany phase from 29 to 32, right? I hate the fucking term hoe phase, but
Just use 304.
when they're in that phase, what they complain is when they're in that phase, they have no rules for, they don't make a guy wait at all, right? And then now when they get to that epiphany phase and they want to get married, they're like, I'm gonna make the guy who's gonna marry me make him wait.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
First off, I think you should wait
Right.
because of the way men fall in love.
Right.
Like if
They
you're
can prove it to you.
right, if you are a man falls in love in those 3 stages, right? Stage 1, we know we're into you when we're close to you and we want to split the distance. We just have this urge. If I'm 4 feet away, I want to be 2 feet away. We know that. We know we really like you. Once we've been intimate, we don't want you to go anywhere. We're not like, oh my God, what did I just do? Right? And I said that in the video the other day. I'm like, that is real. Like when you say a guy played you, maybe he did play you, but I think it is much more likely he actually thought he liked you, and then found out with a big crash that he did not, and he put his hands over his face in the fucking mirror in the bathroom. He's like, what did I just do? Oh my God, So, what a woman should do is if she wants to be in a relationship, she should give that guy time to figure out if he actually likes her, without him having to find out through intimacy. Because with enough time, he'll know.
The intimacy will be there.
You're right. With enough time, he'll know, right? So I think we need to be much more judicious with our partners. You know what I mean?
Men too. Not just women.
Men
too.
and women. Agree.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, because the problem with men don't suffer trauma until a much higher number. Like a girl suffers trauma after that 5, it just fucking drops off. The guy's number is in the triple digits before he starts suffering trauma. That is his inability to commit to a single woman, right? Well, but the one thing that all guys are getting if they're sleeping around is they are conditioning themselves to treat sex as a transaction and not as an experience between 2 people. And that fucks your head up. You know what I mean? It's like
That spiritual interaction.
right. God did not create us. He didn't create us to be promiscuous, right? The flesh draws us towards there, but God created us to create a family that serves His kingdom and creates children for His kingdom, right? That's what He did, and I wish people would wait more. Like I don't kiss a girl on the first date, ever, no matter what. I never kiss a girl first, number one. That's another thing. I've always had these weird rules, and they've just worked out. I had all these girlfriends.
He plays hard to get. That's a strategy.
No, what it is I had female friends, and all my friends in high school, most of my friends in high school were girls. And so I had my core boys, but I was a dancer, so the girls, like the cheerleaders always needed me to do their routines. It was only me and 2 other dudes who could dance. So I would hear their stories. I went out with him. He kissed me. I didn't really want him to, but I didn't want to reject him.
Fascinating that you say you had more female friends early on than you did male friends, because with you being, I don't connect on a personal level. I don't get into the into the feelings, right? In my experience, those are the kind of guys that women become friends with, and actually genuine friends, and not just the guy that's trying to sleep with them, right? Like,
well, I think it had to do with the fact that everybody knew. Number one, I'm very protective of women because of what happened to my mom.
sure.
And everybody knew what happened to my mom.
Right.
And so for whatever reason, they knew.
They felt like they could trust.
They felt like they could trust me. That I wouldn't hurt women because of what happened to my mom.
Sure. Right.
And I really think that's where that came from. Because it wasn't like we were having these deep,
Right.
emotional. I was just basically.
They weren't putting their heart out there and trying to.
Yeah, I would hear it, and they'd be talking, and they would say, "Oh, I heard him," and I never wanted a girl to say that about me.
Right.
Like I forced myself on them, or I kissed them when they didn't want to. So, where I don't kiss girls on the first date. So, and she was like, "Why not? Why don't you?" And I said, "Because who's in a hurry? Like, why do you have to kiss on the first date? Like, if you have what it takes, like everybody wants what it takes, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Assuming you're dating intentionally, you want what it takes. The only person who wants to kiss on the first date is the person who
Wants to escalate the sexual.
fast.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, who the fuck is in a hurry? You know what I mean? And, that's what I said to her. I said, who's in a hurry? And she was shocked.
Want to put a bow on this and then we'll put it on ANS?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my only question to that would be, isn't it also kind of important to determine if you have sexual chemistry at an earlier phase?
Absolutely.
Like kissing, for example. If I kiss a girl and she goes in with all teeth, probably not a good bet that this is going to work out, right?
So,
or, like sometimes you just hug people and you're like, this is just weird. I don't know what's going on here. And it's just, there's that natural tension that you feel, right? Versus there's other moments where it's like, man, this comes so natural.
I agree with you 100%, but let me spin it back because I thought about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe you should, kissing's it's harmless,
Sure.
basically.
Right.
You'll find out right away.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to be with a girl who isn't an incredible kisser. Like, it can't even just be average. You got to be off the charts, right? So, yes, the argument would be, well, maybe you want to get there, but hear me out on this one.
Yeah.
You go out with a girl on a first date, and you've probably, let's say you've spent 2, maybe 3 hours talking to her,
Sure.
and then 2 hours on your date, 3 hours on your date. You've got 5 total hours.
Yeah.
You really don't know each. I mean, you're just barely scratching the surface.
True.
That first kiss is a big fucking deal.
True. It can
And-
make or break things, for
Yeah,
sure.
and let's say it's a borderline. Let's say the nerves are borderline, right? The nerves make it a borderline. Because that makes that kiss so much more of a bigger deal because the sample size of your interaction is so small.
Sure.
But if you get to the second date and now what you've got is 10 hours of interaction and you've learned a little bit more about strengths, weaknesses, insecurities,
Right, yeah.
synergy,
Yep.
well, now
It makes that kiss more meaningful.
yeah, the kiss is meaningful and it is a smaller part of your interaction. And so you may not be so quick to, because do you really want to make the judgment on a kiss?
Yeah, imagine if you just kissed a girl blindfolded and that was your only
Correct.
interaction.
Would you really want to make it just on the kiss?
Right.
And so-
It's a filtering part that basically filters out if you want to go forward or not. That's a critical piece.
Right.
Do you want to rush that in when you only known the person for a few
Right.
hours versus a larger sample size before initiating?
But I also argue this point. It should happen organically, right? It should just, you should both know at the exact moment, now's the time. It shouldn't be one person thinks it's time and the other person doesn't. It should happen organically, right? And organically for me is when I feel in my gut, now's the time. It's like this moment is the moment, let's do it. And honestly, I never look a girl in the eye and I'm like, yeah, now's the time. It's like, and then you just, and then right away. And I always comment, like whether it was good, whether it was nah.
You comment.
That's
right
it.
away.
That's it.
That's
Because if it was bad for me,
immediate feedback.
if it was bad for me, it was bad for her. And then you
Who
break the
knows?
ice.
You might have been the best kisser she's
Oh,
ever had.
yeah,
You just devastated her whole world. Everything just shambles. Right?
But I will say this. I'll say this piece here. I do struggle with this part. I do not understand why people are in such a fucking hurry. I don't get it. Here's the other thing. I want to say one other thing to guys real quick. This is a really important point, and I did put this in the video. And I know this plays a huge role in my success in dating. A girl I'm dating is like my 5th priority. Like, I God first, family second, team third, and then the shit I'm into, powerlifting is 4. And what you're trying to do is take a girl who's 5th on your priority list and put her in the number 2 slot in your family. But in the beginning, she's in the number 5 slot. And I never realized how much guys simp for girls.
It's out of desperation.
I did not know dudes were.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's why OnlyFans is literally women are making millions based off of desperation of guys just needing that interaction. And I think that's why they rush to have that kiss on the first date. That's why they're so quick to do it out of desperation because they're thinking, if I don't make this move now, what's going to happen?
well,
right?
that's a good point. So let me go back to this other point. So years ago, when I met Tanya and I got together at a time when we went to a party, I was the guy every girl wanted. She was the girl every guy wanted. Like we were king and queen of the home. That's who we were. I was shredded, fucking, and it wasn't even intentional. It was just that's who I was. That's who Tanya was as a girl. People would ask me like, hey, like why is it so easy for you? Like I go to a club, I was a dancer, so I would go to a club and I'd be dancing with my boys, and we would do routines and shit, and it would draw attention. They would be like, what pickup line you do? And you're like, that shit doesn't work, dude. Nobody uses a pickup line.
No.
Only guys who strike out use pickup lines. What you do is you plant a seed over time. Like, this is what I'm talking about, the why is everybody in a hurry? If I saw a beautiful girl before I wanted to be in a relationship. So it's like, I just want a beautiful girl to hang out with. If I saw a beautiful girl at O'Leary's, which was this Irish pub we used to hang out at on Friday nights. If I saw a beautiful girl, first time I ever see her, I'm going to have a 4-second interaction with her that day. It's going to be, I'm going to see if she makes eye contact with me at least twice, and then all I'm going to do is smile. That's it. I will not talk to her. I will not walk up to her. I will not do anything. I will literally wait a week, hope to see her. Maybe I see her in 2 weeks, right? And then the next time, I will have an interaction with her, but it's going to be like 10 seconds, and it might end in a wink. That's it. It might be a, excuse me, whatever, hey, can I grab that, and then, oh, hey, how's it going? Wink. And then the fact alone that you didn't move in so quick, I didn't think about this consciously. It was like I looked back on it over life. And it's like the fact that I didn't move in right away, you know how girls have that layer on the outside?
You're like, why didn't he talk to me?
Right, the standoffish layer.
Yeah.
Once you get behind that, that's when you get to know people, and they have that with 99% of the people they interact with. It was like those interactions over 2 weeks got rid of that. So the third time,
Right.
the seed had been planted and you watered it a little bit, and then it turned into an opportunity to have a conversation, But that takes time.
Right.
But I remember thinking, why would you be in such a hurry? You know what I mean? Like, why would you be in such a hurry?
I mean, I think it's loneliness for men. It's that sense of belonging, that sense of want, sense of bonding. Because guys don't have relationships anymore, right? Like, when I was growing up, you'd have buddies in the neighborhood. You go out, play football together, whatever, right? And then you get to high school, and you have, you might be on the football team, or you might be part of the soccer team, or whatever, right? But as you get out of high school, that starts to dwindle. And if you don't go to college, right, now you're working a full-time job, and you might have some high school buddies that stick around. Most of them probably took off, right? So it's finding that sense of community, sense of belonging, that men kind of, I would say, rely on women to help provide for them, right? They feel loneliness. What else am I going to do? If I find a woman, she's going to fill that void.
I do believe that one of the most important relationships a guy has in his life is the girl who breaks his heart the first time.
Oh, 1,000%.
Like,
yeah, it makes you learn.
You need, I think every guy needs that. You should get that girl in high school, get that shit out of the way.
Yep.
Because because the first time someone loves you by choice, you think about it, like, up until that moment, your family loves you and they're obligated to. Yep. And then, like, just some complete stranger is like, I love you.
Yeah.
And I want to be with you.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, me? Like,
it almost gives you purpose.
right. You're like, oh my God, I am worthy. Yeah. Right? I am, holy shit. The first time someone who's not family loves you, they choose to love you, that's an overwhelming feeling for a guy. Overwhelming.
And to your point, you want to provide for that person.
Correct.
You want them to rely on you, and then the moment that they walk away, your whole world just shatters.
Well, and what's even worse is we're told that all you have to do is love them
unconditionally.
Love unconditionally, and that is terrible advice to give to a guy.
Oh yeah.
Love matters. But you have got, what you really should be saying is, you need to be the giant in her life who loves her and takes care of her. That means sometimes you gotta say no.
Audio Jungle.